Hi, my name's Tim Johnson. This is a very quick video about anger and resentment and jealousy and envy and all those destructive emotions which we can hang on to, which can drive us from periods of sobriety back into addiction and make our lives very unhappy and miserable. And it's about letting them go and not accepting them. And I know that, it was one of the biggest lessons that I ever learned, particularly in this period of sobriety, was letting go of anger and resentment and all the destructive emotions that those two things could bring up inside of you and the unhappiness that they would create inside of you. In today's modern world, it's where ego is so important and people are surviving on ego and seeking approval and worrying about what people think of them and whether they like them or not, etc., and trying to keep up with people. Letting go of anger and resentment becomes massively important in maintaining your sobriety and ultimately your inner happiness and your inner peace. Because if you can't let those things go or learn to let them go, then they will always drive you back into addiction. I was a very angry and resentful person throughout many, many years, certainly during my addictions, and would never let things go. I was very quick to anger and react, and my flashpoint was extremely low, and I would harbour grudges and jealousy and envy, and if someone insulted me or I perceived that they've insulted me, then it would become a major thing, and it would drive me into dark periods of unhappiness and resentment, and ultimately back to my drug or alcohol, or to wipe those feelings away. And it became a massive, it was something that I found it really hard to let go of. And when I got sober 3 years ago, it was one of the biggest lessons that I learned, that I couldn't control what people thought of me, and in fact, if the truth be known, people don't think of you that often at all. You don't, it's only in your mind that they do. That's your ego talking to you. And letting that go was a massive lesson to me, and learning to let that go and knowing that the only two things that I really had control of was my own thoughts and my own actions, and not to let interference from the outside upset that inner happiness I was beginning to feel and that strength inside I was beginning to feel. And that's been brilliant. And it's not been easy, and it's absolutely still a work in progress for me every single day. Because it can be it could be anything little, like someone jumping in a queue in front of me, or it could be a perceived insult. And when you start these channels, you leave yourself open, and that's fine, because it's about sharing experience and perhaps helping other people ultimately, which is what this is all about. But you also leave yourself open to insult and negativity and disagreement. Well, I'm always open for disagreements, and my ego would be stupidly massive if I thought that I was right all the time, because I know I'm not. But I share my experience, and if someone disagrees with that, I'm more than happy to leave the comment open for debate, and perhaps an answer will be found through that debate, which is what this channel's all about, and what any channel should be all about. But sometimes the comments become very personal and wish harm to you and your family, and that is more difficult to let go of, particularly for someone with my past history who has found it difficult to deal with anger and resentment. And that's happened quite recently, and a few days ago, which is why I've made this video. It's away from the topics I've been talking about, which I'll return to in the next video, but I wanted to share this with you. Doesn't matter what stage of sobriety you're at, you've got to watch and check your inner anger and resentments and the destructive emotions that can arise from that, like jealousy and envy, and because they will ultimately lead you backwards There's no doubt about it. And possibly if you let them fester and don't deal with them and let them go, then they may lead you back into your drug of choice or alcohol or whatever it is, your addiction. You can't change what people think about you. You can't influence them, you know. So I ultimately hide the use of this particular person keeps coming back in a different guise, but, you know, I nearly let it affect me, and I did anger, and it took me 24 hours to sort that out inside of myself, and then suddenly come to a realization, what the hell am I doing here? And I'll tell you a little bit of a story. I'll share a story with you. And it's about a boxing champion who was talking to his pupil one day. And the pupil had watched while another bloke had come in and insulted this boxing champion and thrown jealousy and envy at him and anger and resentment and, like I say, very cruel insults. And the pupil had turned, you know, when this guy had left, the pupil went to the teacher, the boxing teacher, and he said, "Why didn't you fight that man? Why didn't you knock hell out of him? Because you're more than capable of. You're a boxing champion. You could have destroyed him." And he thought for a second, the boxing champion, and he looked at the pupil and he said, "If someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" And the pupil thought for a second, and he said, "Well, it still belongs to the person who tried to give it to you." And the teacher, the boxing teacher, said, "That's correct." And he said, "It's the same with anger and resentment and jealousy and insults and all those things. If you refuse to accept them, then they still belong to the person who offered them to you." And that is something that I think about quite a lot, because it's generally, and always about the other person. It's about what they're holding on to and about their inner unhappiness and anger and hurt and jealousy and envy and all those emotions that you don't want them on board when you're recovering, or even if you're not or haven't been in addiction, or you just want a happy life. You know, you've got to learn to let it go. You've got to learn that they're destructive emotions and that you can't control other people's thoughts and actions. You can only control your own thoughts and actions. And ultimately, don't accept, as the proverb has just told you, don't accept those things from other people. Leave them with them. That's their baggage, not yours. And don't let them affect your joy and happiness and inner happiness. Thank you for listening anyway. Carpe Diem. Seize the day today. Please subscribe to the channel. It just means more people can see the videos if they're helping you. Like them, and please share them if you think they'll help anyone else. Seize the day today. Much love to you. Keep smiling. Thank you.